Mary had a little lamb.
The fault, dear Brutus.
Liftoff. The clock has started.
We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon.
I have a dream today.
Change has come to America.
And the nomination is going to Rand Paul.
This is the Randy Rhoads Show. Turn up your mind.
And folks, the war on nugs used to have a strong ally in CNN's Dr. Sanjay Gupta, who opposed legalizing pot until now.
I want to remind you that in 2009, you wrote a Time magazine article entitled "Why I Would Vote No on Pot." You've changed your mind.
I have, and as part of my thinking reason, I've apologized for some of the earlier reporting because I think we've been terribly and systematically misled in this country for some time, and I did part of that misleading.
Wait a second, we were misinformed by a cable news doctor? Next, you'll tell me I can't get directions to my cousin's house from Fareed Zakaria GPS. Come on, Fareed, less on Syria, more on how I get to where Greg lives. It's bad enough that Sanjay Gupta, or as I now call him, Ganjay Supta, okay, a global teen icon, has gone over to the dank side. But what's even more disturbing, folks, about Sanjay feeling those gooped vibrations is that we've all seen what happens when he gets the munchies.
This is stud bull penis. This is deer penis. These are lamb testicles. It's Russian dog penis. If I wanted to order some tiger penis, can I order that here?
Really? Is that really who you want to burn down with, America? Yeah, sure, you thought it was funny when your friend said, dude, let's get the dog high. But how funny will it be when he says, dude, let's eat the dog's penis?
Well, it's Friday, you bastards, and that means you can talk about just about anything you want, except I do have something to say about the marijuana. Dr. Sanjay Gupta apparently now has an op-ed piece, a groundbreaking documentary, and an admission that, yes, he's tried the pot. He's tried the pot! How are we going to get our cable doctors off of the pot? I suspect Dr. Drew is on the pot. I don't know, but, how else could he, forget, not to have these people on his show day after day after... I know nobody watches HLM but me. But, he's got this special out that he wants you to watch. I guess it's tonight at 8 o'clock, called Weed, as opposed to Weeds, which you can't watch anymore in L.A. No Showtime. I don't, CBS gets into a fight with Time Warner Cable, and the people that want the Showtime, which is owned by CBS, can't get the stuff that they paid for. It's like pot. You can never get the stuff that you paid for. And see how it all comes full circle. But, yes, Dr. Sanjay Gupta said that last year he began working on this new documentary called Weed, not to be confused with Weed. And he decided that, what was going wrong with his adamant, insistence that pot was addicting, it should be a Schedule I drug. Just so you know, what Schedule 1 and 2 is. Schedule 1 is marijuana. Schedule 2 is cocaine and meth. Now, I might be upset if my teenage child, whose brain had not fully developed, came home at 16 and told me she was smoking the pot. But not as devastated as I would be if she came home and started snorting lines off, her boyfriend's belly, or, told me, I'm doing meth now. It's better than pot. Pot's Schedule 1. Looked at it, did the research, went for Schedule 2. Do you know what I'm saying? I mean, you shouldn't do any drugs, okay, until your brain is fully formed, because it does lower your IQ. Even the pot, everything that you would put into your body that isn't natural, while your brain is developing. And, a lot of the South, that takes till they're 35, 45. So I would say no, but typically it's 24. So you shouldn't really be doing anything until you're 24 so that your brain can develop to its fullest potential. However, if you do have a child who decides to smoke the pot in their teenage years, while you might want to talk them out of it for the reasons I've just stated, it isn't going to be because it's addicting. And it isn't going to be because it's somehow going to affect, their profile on addiction. And that's what Dr. Sanjay Gupta came forward to say. Apparently, the cable doctor didn't realize you need to inhale. See, I guess Bill Clinton confused him, and he didn't understand the process. I guess he understands the chemical components. I guess he understands the brain, but I don't think he understood the procedure. Must inhale in order to get the full effect. So now he's on board because he's inhaled, and he's saying it doesn't cause violence, it doesn't cause people to be aggressive, it doesn't cause all these things, but it does cure and it does aid in a lot of diseases, and that medical marijuana sometimes is the only thing that actually brings relief to patients who have, these sort of neuropathic pain where, you feel like you're getting stung by 1,000 bees, like that nerve pain that makes your foot feel like it's asleep, and things like that. He said, and seizure disorders. Sometimes pot is the only thing that actually works for seizure disorders. And right now, what they're prescribing for seizure disorders, which will come to a lot, make joy for a lot of Schedule I drug users, is oxycodone and poppy-based drugs, like oxycodone, Vicodin, these things, which have a very, very high addiction rate. Every 19 minutes in the United States, somebody accidentally, of course, overdoses on one of these poppy-based drugs. Synthetic heroines is what they are. And so he's seeing that, marijuana actually is a better choice, and that a lot of doctors would like to try that before the heavy-duty poppy pain medication, which leads to addiction. It leads to having to check out of society. It leads to, yes, pot will make you sit in front of the couch and watch an enormous amount of Bewitched. Okay, it will. But meth, coke, Vicodin, oxycodone, roxycodone, these things will make you take the television apart. There's a difference in the behavior you get from the meth and the pot. And that's what Dr. Sanjay Gupta was talking about. He said that he started doing all this. I'll let you tell. I'll let him say what he said here.
When you look at the literature surrounding marijuana, if you do a search through the medical journals, some 20,000 papers would pop up. And I was keeping up steadily on the scientific literature. But what I was realizing was that the vast majority of these studies talked about the harm, the perils, the problems with marijuana. A very small percentage, less than 10%, close to 6%, actually evaluated benefit. So when you looked at all these studies in aggregate, Wolf, you would think that there was a distorted picture. You would think there was a lot more harm with marijuana than potential benefit. But it wasn't until I started looking at laboratories outside the United States, smaller laboratories that were doing amazing work, listening to the course of legitimate patients for whom not only did marijuana work, it was the only thing that worked. And that was quite stunning to me. I also looked closely at the DEA scheduling policy. They classify marijuana as a Schedule I substance, saying it's in the category of the most dangerous substances out there. And when I looked carefully at that, I found there was really no scientific evidence to say it was that dangerous, that it had high abuse potential, and that it had no medical applications. I believe it does have medical applications, and I just thought it was an important message to get out there.
It is an important message to get out there because there are too many people locked up in jails for stupid things like marijuana. Nonviolent offenders who are sentenced to mandatory minimum drug sentences with marijuana as a Schedule I drug. You have thousands, hundreds of thousands of nonviolent offenders in federal prison because of marijuana possession, because of mandatory minimum sentencing. And I have a funny feeling that among the things yesterday I was searching to figure out what do we as a population, a citizenry, not Democrats, not Republicans, not black, not white, not Hispanic, not Latino, nothing. What do we as a citizenry agree on? And I was just wondering if we agree on the marijuana today. Do we agree that there are entirely too many people who are placed in jail for an entirely too long period of time based on nonviolent drug offenses having to do with marijuana? And shouldn't we, instead of, criminalizing that and making these people into felons, thereby ruining the rest of their lives, because, they will get out of prison, but we know we use solitary confinement entirely too much. We know that prison doesn't rehabilitate. We know that prison corrupts. It corrupts people's soul. It corrupts their brain. It messes with them. It turns them into a different kind of person. And I think that we have some agreement from the Attorney General and the President about these laws. And I do seem to find some general bipartisan agreement on these laws. I think Pat Leahy and Grover Norquist actually agree. I think Rand Paul and Eric Holder actually agree. This is crazy good. Now, the bigger question for today is, I mean, the president's doing a press conference right now, and he's talking about foreign policy. He's talking about Snowden and the U.S.-Russia relationship and, the NSA and all this stuff. And, frankly, I will dip in and out of it, if I think they ask a pertinent question that affects our lives, like where's the jobs? Or where's the jobs bill? Or what are you going to do about this 9%? I mean, because, look, here's what we do agree on. This is crazy. We agree the main focus of the Congress ought to be jobs. We all agree on that. That's crazy good. We agree on immigration reform, believe it or not. Even Republicans agree with us that we need immigration reform. We also have 84% approval for background checks on guns. Even 54% of Republicans agree we should be raising the minimum wage. I think we agree on the pot. I think we agree on the too long sentences for this mass incarceration that we've seen. This war on drugs is a loser. I think we agree. I'm trying to figure that out today. I don't know. I know we agree that Congress blows. I know we do, because Congress only has a 9% approval rating. So we agree Congress just blows. This is the crappiest Congress I've ever seen in my life. So there's a lot to agree on. I'll tell you what we don't agree on. We don't agree on race. We don't even agree whether or not we want to talk about race. And I know people's heads are going to explode August 28th when the president actually delivers a speech commemorating the 50th anniversary of the I Have a Dream speech at the Lincoln Memorial. I know your head is going to explode, people. I do. I get it. And I know what the argument and the screaming and the shrieking is going to sound like ahead of that day. I know we don't agree on science and math. I know that. These are problems. But I do know we agree on jobs. I know we agree on immigration reform. I know we agree on gun background safety checks. I know we agree on the minimum wage. So why is it that this country is being told over and over again that we don't agree on anything? It's too polar. There's plenty of agreement here, and there's plenty of room to do some stuff. Now, I think our best bet is the pot. Because everybody smokes. 19 after.
Randy Rhodes.
Cutting through the bull. This is the Randy Rhodes Show.
This is Hal. Catch me weekdays 6 to 9 every morning on AM 540 KRXA.
It's Randy Rhodes on Premier Radio Networks.
I think there are too many people in jail for too long and for not necessarily good reasons.
This is the nation's top law enforcement officer calling for a sea change in the criminal justice system.
The war on drugs is now 30, 40 years old. There have been a lot of unintended consequences. There has been kind of a decimation of certain communities, in particular communities of color.
That's one reason why the Justice Department's had a group of lawyers working behind the scenes for months on proposals the Attorney General could present as early as next week in a speech to the American Bar Association. Some of the items are changes Holder can make on his own, like directing U.S. attorneys not to prosecute certain kinds of low-level drug crimes, or spending money to send more defendants into treatment instead of prison. Almost half of the 219,000 people currently in federal prison are serving time on drug charges.
Well, we can certainly change our enforcement priorities, and so we have some control in that way. how we deploy our agents, what we tell our prosecutors to charge. But I do think that this would be best done if the executive branch and the legislative branch work together to look at this whole issue and come up with changes that were acceptable to both.
See, this is the problem. It all sounds really good when you listen to the Eric Holder talk about, hey, let's direct our prosecutors not to prosecute these low-level possession charges. Let's not throw our money into incarceration. Let's throw some money behind rehab or rehabilitation or treatment programs. It's a much better use of your dollars. I mean, and then he gets to the part where it would be great if the Congress would work with the president on this, and then you go, oh yeah, and that's why I know we agree our Congress blows. They will do absolutely freaking nothing, and it's because of people like Mitch McConnell, who has to run for re-election again in Kentucky, where they used to grow tobacco. You might have some fertile soil there that you might want to redirect to, something else people can smoke that's a little less dangerous than tobacco. And I'm a tobacco user and not a marijuana user. So I just, I understand there are racial implications to the pot laws, and I think everybody kind of gets it, that the impact it has in minority neighborhoods, it's disproportional. I told you. The amount of drug usage in young white men, young white kids versus young black kids is greater. The chances that a white kid is going to use drugs is greater than a black kid using drugs, and yet when you look at the prison population, it's disproportionately minority populations that are in overcrowded prison systems. We have hamstrung judges who can't even determine what the proper sentencing is because they have to follow these ridiculous mandatory minimums. It doesn't deter crime, and we're throwing our money out the window. And what's crazy good is that there is an inordinate amount of bipartisan consensus around this issue. There are 2 bills in Congress right now. You have Mike Lee of Utah, who's about as backcrap crazy as they come. But you have Mike Lee in Utah working with Senator Dick Durbin in Illinois. They've come up with something called the Smarter Sentencing Act. At least that gives judges a little leeway when they actually do it on a case-by-case basis instead of these federal mandatory minimums that they have to sentence people to. At least they can look at this person and decide for themselves as a sitting judge whether or not this person represents violence in the community or is a danger to others or a danger to himself or, what are the drugs that this person is using, and sentence people, if he has to, below the mandatory minimum. It also lowers the mandatory minimum for different kinds of drug crimes. And then there's the other piece of legislation that is being worked on in the Senate with Senator Patrick Leahy, the Democrat from Vermont, and Rand Paul from Kentucky. Also, Robert Scott from Virginia, a Democrat, and Thomas Massey, a Republican from Kentucky. They go even further in their bill. They have the elimination of mandatory minimums for nonviolent drug crimes. And either one of them would be a positive step. It would be good. So if we have all this bipartisan support, why are we still doing drug raids on marijuana plants and medical marijuana facilities? And it's so what a waste of money. I will say we did a Fair Sentencing Act in 2010. It reduced the disparity between powder and crack cocaine from 100 to 1 down to 18 to 1. You can thank James Sensenbrenner, Paul Ryan, and Ron Paul, and Todd Aiken, formerly Todd Aiken. But look at the people that are actually behind drug reform. And we better hurry up and do it before we get a privatized prison system. It would be a very positive step. A very positive step. But do I have hope that Congress can do anything? No.
Randy Rhodes.
Turn up your mind. Here. Now. This is The Randy Rhodes Show.